Hello, John here again, and this video is going to be slightly different from what we've been doing at the moment. Still about Neptune Lander, but this one's going to be different because hopefully it's going to be a short video, but it's basically around a question one of my patrons asked me, and it was Stuart Hurst, and he asked me, John, as a favour to me at least, would you mind terribly doing a video of you changing your original Neptune Lander to when you moved the code about to the structure of, he's put Dave Morris, but he's on about Derek Morris, users please. And I said, yeah, we can do that. I was looking back and I was looking back at the videos and I was thinking maybe I didn't explain it enough. So here's going to be a video hopefully that's going to try and clarify what I did. So where we're going to start is Derek's chapter 12 code. So this is the shooter that he did that's in his book. So let me just run it so you can see what it is. Oh, and of course I built it wrong. It's project you have to build. Here we go. Oh, it's taking its time, this is. There we go. It's on the other screen. Let's bring that back as well. Here we go. So ignore the background because this is where I've been messing around trying to see how his timings work. So this is his basically shooter. So we're going to press fire. There we go. I can't even play this. Oh, come on, John, you can do better than that. Oh. Anyway, so that's his chapter 12 game. And the reason I've got this up is because I want to show you how Derek structured his game. So what he's done, so we ignore the library files. So let's get rid of the library files from here because they're just macro libraries, and I've already done a video explaining those libraries, so get rid of all those. Now these are the game files. So we've got game alien, game bullet, let's put that up there, game flow, that's there, game main, yeah, game memory, that's there, game player, there we go, and game stars. And what he's done is he's split the code into sections. So he's got a file that's just dedicated to the alien code. This is all the memory locations, all the stuff to do with the aliens. He's got a file that's dedicated to all the code that controls the flow of the game, so you know where it transitions from state to state, and the memory's in there as well. Game main, that is the root of the game. That is the game that is controlling all the other stuff. So this is the file that controls all the other stuff. So as you can see, it's got the looper in that runs all the other routines in their other files. So we've got a file that's dedicated to all the player mechanics and shows the players, as well as having all the constants and memory items. Then we've got one that's just dedicated to the background, the stars, the star field in the background. It's just there for that. And one that's basically dedicated to the bullet mechanics. So it's got all the inline data points and all the code that's related to when you fire that bullet and how that bullet travels and what does it detect. And then we've got, finally, we've got a file that's dedicated to all the memory locations and where everything's going to be put. So as you can see, we've got some 0 pages defined, and then we're defining the screen, where the sprite pointers are, where the start of the sprites go, where the start of where the characters go, and then he's got other constants where he's pointing to the sound chip, the video vic chip and all that. And it's the game main file that controls the whole lot. This is the file, this is the code that runs and loops the code around all the other files. So keep this in mind when you look at Neptune Lander, because this is what I tried to copy. I tried to copy by compartmentalize, putting all the code in different buckets. Anyway, by putting the code in different buckets, so all the code relating to the lander is in one bucket, all the code relating to the game flow is in another bucket, all the code that was relating to the mathematics, I think, is in another bucket. But so what I'll do is I'm going to load Neptune Lander in so we can see. That's the one. Where's it, that one? Where's my GitHub one? Is that it? No, that's Mark's. Where's my GitHub one? Da 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 da. Come here. No. GitHub. Here we go. Right, so we're looking, so we don't want that, so that is a library for the Lunar Collider, library constants, game. Right, so let's load all the game stuff. It's game bar, that's there, game flow, yeah, game lander, yeah, game memory, yeah, and that's it. And then we'll load version 1. So, right at the very beginning, when we did the basic version of Neptune Lander, where we coded the basic rule set for this game in BASIC, because that's going to be a bit of a mouthful if you say it quickly, we basically another basic, we basically run through the code from top to bottom, and with the odd go sub, but everything was contained in one file. And that's what Neptune Lander V1 was. We took that basic file and translated it into machine code. So everything is all in one file. So this is where we do the game start and the game loop, and we test the death scene, and we do all the animation, and we set up the sprites. And as you can see, where the REM statements are, that's basically the lines that I was converting into machine code. And as you can see, it's just one long big file. And there's nothing wrong with having a long file or a big file, but when you're a developer, you try not to put all the source code in one ginormous file, because I mean, even now version 1 of Lunar Lander was 392 lines, so that's almost 400 lines of code in that version, which was a very, very basic version of the Neptune Lander. And if we said on version 2 tried to rebuild that back into one file, I can guarantee you, I bet that is in the thousands of lines. And the problem with that is when you're trying to debug, and when you're trying to debug and all that, you tend to get lost, and you find that you're losing your way. And it's even worse because if you've put it away, let's say you've got bored with code in it, yeah, and you've put it away for a couple of months, and you've done something else, and then you come back to it, and then you've presented with this one huge file with several thousand lines of code in it, you can get a bit daunted by your own work. And so one of the things that programmers try to do is to try and modularize all the code, so each module is dedicated to a specific function. And that's what Derek's tried to do, and I think he's done pretty well in the book. So he's created modules that looks after the bullet, he's created modules that looks after the alien, he created a module to look after the player, a module for all the memory, and a module that's the actual main program. So in this lander, if you remember, this whacking great big file, we started looking at how we could modularize this code. And when I looked at it, we got the lunar lander, yeah, we got the lander, so that would be one module. We've got the flow, the game flow, how the game changes states and why it changes states, and the code that governs all those change states. We've got a module that's dedicated to looking after the fuel bar and the velocity accelerator bar, and we have a module that's dedicated to the memory. And so all the functions within those modules will be named accordingly. So like in game bars, it's GB, so everything starts with a GB. So when you're looking at the code and you see a function that says GB setup fuel and speed bars, you know that is game bar. And same with game flow, it's GF. So each function that's written here, or each routine that's written in here, is called GF for game flow. Same with lander, GL for game lander. So all the code that's in here that's functions are prefixed with GL. And the same with GM, if we've got any functions in there, and yes we have here. So set up the game variables and add fuel consumption, set up the custom character. And you have to try and work out what are the logical buckets, compartments, whatever, how you ever want to call it, that this code will fall in. So if you've got a massive coding script and you want to separate it out to make it a little easier to read, because comments are great, but trying to find the function is a battle in itself. So it's great having comments that describes the function when you find it, but then you've got the problem is you've got to find the function and trying to compartmentalize. Oh, I said it. And modularize the code helps, because then you think, right, I need to look at the lander's control mechanism. Right, so it's going to be in game lander. So we can go into game lander, and then you're only, here's game lander, and then you're only looking at 200 lines rather than trying to find the 200 lines that you need. So, here it is. Read the input and output and update variables section, and this is because it's all geared to the lander. And that's how I migrated from having one big listing with all the code in, and then to separate it out into compartments where I had the code that was describing and governing the certain aspects of the game. So any functions that affected the lander went into game lander. Any functions that affected the bars was in game bars. Any function that affected the flow of the game, so transitioning from being alive to dying to dead, that would be in the game flow. And so you just have to think effectively logically. You look at the function, what is it affecting, or what is the major thing it's affecting, yeah? And once you've defined the major thing that it's affecting, if you haven't got a file for that, make one and then just copy it straight in. And then all you do in the game, see, game main for me is Neptune Lander V2. That is my game main, yeah? And then what you do, you just include all those assembly files into your master assembly file. Now, this is my way of doing it. This is not Derek's way of doing it, because Derek, because he assembles the project, it basically assembles every file that's in that project. Now, I didn't want to do that because I wanted you guys to see the transitions from state to state. So I include the assembly files in the master file and then assemble the master file. Hence, I make the mistake when I'm on Game Lander and I go F5 and then we get light here, we get an error look. You know, must specify start address. Boop, plank. You know, and that is how my thought processes were to convert from a huge listing that could potentially be thousands of lines long and modularize it so each function was in its own module that was describing the characteristics. So in this case, Game Lander contains all the functions that are affect the Lander logic. Game Flow that governs the flow of the game. Game Bars so all the functions that control the bars, and so on. So I'm hoping, Stuart, this answers your question, because it's very difficult to try and demonstrate this once it's been done. So what I've tried to do is just try to explain my thought processes when I did it, and hopefully Derek will comment and say whether I'm absolutely talking rubbish or yes, you nailed it, John. But you've got to remember that each programmer is different. If you look at the code that Mark Shephard's done, which is another patron of mine who's been following this series and has actually created his own Neptune Lander game, which I've borrowed some code off, he's done the same thing. So you have examples. It's just a case of downloading the code, having a look, and look at other people's code as well. Look at Derek's code, look at Mark's code, and anybody else's code that uses this CBM Prod Studio and how they've implemented their code. And I can guarantee you there'll be library files and there'll be compartment files or module files that contain the functions and the logic for specific items that file is trying to explain. The next thing is, once you've done that, is you cover it in comments. And I haven't done this with Neptune Lander, but I will be. Quite a lot of it is commented, but as you can see from that screen, there's very few. But I have commented other places, you know, and I've tried to make sure that the libraries are really commented, so that it shows you the inputs and the results, but I've still got to comment what's going on here, and I will be doing that at some point in later. We've got typical programmer, code first, comment later. So I hope, Stuart, that has answered your question. Please let me know, because it would be nice to hear if it was in the right ballpark, and hopefully this will help you do your own coding and understanding how we transition from the one program file to the many, and the thought processes through it. So if you like this video, please click that like button. If you didn't like the video, fine, hit the dislike button. Always leave me a comment, and if you like what I do and you'd like to support me, consider becoming a patron of mine. all the money raised in the Patreon comes back into the channel. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye. I'd like to thank all the patrons that are contributing to my channel. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. Thank you very much.